she gets that done, and I remember I was at work, got a call from her. She could barely talk. She was so upset, and she said they found something in my CT scan, or something big in my abdomen. I don't know what to think. I'm scared. And we go to the appointment. Her doctor comes in, the oncologist. We had never met her before. It's the first time. She comes in quietly, sits down, opens the file, looks up, and she's got tears coming down. Doctor's got tears, and my heart's beating out of control. And Haley just blurts out, "Tell me I can have children." And she takes this deep sigh, and she goes, I've been doing this a long time, and by the looks of your scan, you have ovarian cancer. Reading that and looking through your chart and my experience, it's advanced. And Haley's like, "Please tell me I can have children." And she said, "You're going to have to worry about that later. You're fighting for your life." Haley comes to for a split second, and she sees everybody that she loves surrounded. So she's looking around. She's like, "This is it, isn't it? This is the end." She's like, "This is how I thought it was going to be." It was just like, and we were like, "It's okay." She started getting really scared, right? And I was like, "It's okay, it's okay. We just wanted to be around you. We just wanted to be with you." And then I knew I needed to go get Weston immediately. Brought Weston in, and I was like, "This is it, buddy. Do you understand what's going on?" And he looked at me like he knew what was going on, but didn't want to say it. Yeah. And I just said, "I've been telling you that Mommy was going to go be with Jesus. Well, he's coming. And it may not be right now, but it's very, very, very soon."
Welcome back to the Get Back Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Just Meats. My name is Greg Kelly. I'm here with my co-host, Zeke Pike.
And today we're joined by a special guest, a guy who I came across his story, broke down in tears, sent it to Greg. We both broke down in tears, and a story that I feel like our audience needs to hear. So welcome to the Get Back Podcast, my brother, Taylor Odlozil.
You got it. It's a tough one.
Welcome, brother. Welcome, man. We've been trying to make this happen for a couple months.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, this is Taylor's first podcast appearance.
Never done anything.
What an
like
honor.
this.
And we're stoked to have you, brother. So thank you for joining us, and take us through your journey a little bit. Obviously, when I reached out to you, I had saw the reel, and it was a beautiful reel, just kind of going through your journey with Haley and that experience of you being able to capture that, but then now a lot of the world being able to see your guys' story. And so I'm really anxious to hear it from you, and thanks for coming out. Take us through it.
All right. So to start from the beginning, I met Haley in high school, in College Park High School in the Woodlands, Texas, and I had just finished my sophomore year. She just finished her freshman year, and as soon as I saw her, I was like, "She's beautiful."
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was instantly attracted to her, and so I definitely wanted to meet her, and we started hanging out a little bit. And summer had just started. We were hanging out, and I just could not get her to fully commit to date me, and so summer ended, and we went back to school. And as soon as she thought that I was backing off, she just came running, and we started dating, and that was 2008. And went to homecoming together and prom, and we kind of became known in high school as the couple that was dating. I think there was maybe one or two other couples that started dating in high school that are still together today, but because of her name Haley and my name Taylor, people would call us Taylor, and but it just kind of became like a little item in high school, and so I went to Texas A&M University, and she was a year behind me, so she had one more year of high school, and she ended up coming and going to Blinn, and we dated I dated all through college, and she watched me study my butt off, and I did petroleum engineering and worked very hard at that, and she was supportive of me the entire way, and I was so blessed to have her by my side through everything, because she was with me through so many big moments in my life. But eventually graduation came, and I remember walking across that stage at A&M, and to this day I can tell you, sitting here, that was the last time that I experienced true happiness.
Mm.
And what I mean, I'm not saying that I wasn't happy when I married Haley, or that I wasn't happy when Weston was born. There was just a cloud over me when those days happened, because of what we were going through.
Sure.
But when I was sure, it felt true, like joy and like excitement for what was to come.
Yeah.
Was when I crossed that stage. I had worked really hard for that degree. I knew I could get a good job, and I knew I was going to marry my high school sweetheart. So, that was 2014. I proposed to her in Breckenridge, Colorado, December 1st of 2014, and we immediately started planning the wedding. And fast forward a year, I mean, literally just 15 days after a year, December 2015, Haley had been dealing with some health issues that we couldn't really figure out. She kept going to her gynecologist, and they kept saying, "You're just young, you probably have a cyst or something." She was complaining of bloating and just not having the right energy, and just sluggish. And so she went, I think that year of 2015, she went a couple times to see the gynecologist. And in December, by that time, she was trying to work out and get ready for the wedding, and she was just gaining weight, even though she wasn't eating much, and we just could not figure out what was wrong. And so she went to the gynecologist one last time, and at this point she looked 6 months pregnant. I mean, stretch marks up her belly.
Wow.
And they finally agreed to do an ultrasound. So they did, and instantly knew something was wrong. And so they said, "You need to get a CT scan immediately." So she gets that done, and I remember I was at work, got a call from her. She could barely talk. She was so upset, and she said they found something in my CT scan. There's something big in my abdomen. I don't know what to think. I'm scared. And if you know Haley, her dream was to be a mom. Like, she played with baby dolls growing up, not Barbie dolls. Like, she wanted to be a mother, and she had just her heart and her spirit was made to be a mom. And so her fear of like that might be in jeopardy was just out of control. And I wanted to be a dad. We're not even married yet. We're 2 months out from our wedding. And so we she's like, "Can you come home? I got to go make sure, I want you to be with me when we go into this appointment. And there's an oncologist appointment at noon." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there." So I left work and got in the car, and my mind was racing, and didn't really know what to think. And so I called my mom and let her know that what was going on. And I'm driving home. I remember praying to God. I was like, "Lord, please, whatever it is, let me have kids. Let me be a dad. Like, I'm begging you. Like, whatever I just want to be a dad. Don't take that from me."
Yeah.
And so I get home, and she's very upset, and her parents are trying to keep her calm, and we're just nervous. We don't really know what to think. So we go to the appointment, and we walk in the waiting room, and there's people with no hair sitting in there. And that's how naive I was. I didn't even know what an oncologist was. And that's when I walked in, I was like, "Oh my God, we're at a cancer doctor." Then my life starts spiraling. Then I'm freaking out. I'm sitting in the waiting room. I'm trying to stay calm, and they call us back, and her doctor comes in, the oncologist. We had never met her before. It's the first time. She comes in, quietly sits down, opens the file, looks up, and she's got tears coming down. And then my heart starts like,
The doctor has
starts,
tear going out?
yeah, doctor's got tears, and my heart's beating out of control. And Haley just blurts out, "Tell me I can have children." And she takes this deep sigh and she goes, I've been doing this a long time, and by the looks of your scan, you have ovarian cancer. And by, reading that and looking through your chart and my experience, it's advanced. And Haley's like, "Please tell me I can have children." And she said, "You're going to have to worry about that later. You're fighting for your life."
Mm-hmm.
And, in movies where everything goes quiet and you're hearing a high-pitched sound and everything's in slow motion, that's very accurate. I'm 23 years old, and it's like, I've made all the right decisions. I never went out and partied in high school. I was obedient to my parents. I never got in trouble. I was committed. I was a good friend. I was loyal. I, felt like I went to church and was a good Christian. I feel like I did everything that God asked. And here I am. Everything that I had dreamed for is crashing.
Yeah.
And, we're not even married yet.
How old are you at this time?
I am 23. And
23 years old.
so then she does an exam on Haley. We leave the room. She does an exam, and she just cannot believe that she had made it this long and no one had discovered this. Within a second of examining her,
that's what I was thinking in my head is like, how does it, like, she was complaining for a while, right? Like, what took so long for them
for
to
years?
Be like, you need to get a CAT scan. Obviously, there's like that should have been the first thing that they said.
We learned that you got to advocate for your own health.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It, as trained as doctors are and how much they do care, you have to stand up for what you need. You just got to be vocal about it.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I remember driving home. It's funny during traumatic events what your brain remembers, and you can probably relate to that. It's these small things that no one would probably remember, but we're sitting at the traffic light, and I'm driving, and I'm just sobbing. I've never experienced a fear like I was experiencing. I was 23. My life had been great.
Yeah.
Right.
That fear where you don't know what to do, where it's just so overpowering, and it's just the worst fear. When you're that young, you haven't experienced enough life to teach you to deal with these moments. I was so terrified.
Yeah.
She's crying, her mom's crying, and we're parked next to this car at the stoplight, and I look over and I'm just like, they have no idea that my life is ending, basically. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that you never know what someone's going through.
Yeah.
And that moment
so
stuck with me to this day. And
so what did they tell you at this point? Like, the doctor tell you, like,
she said, before we left, she was like, we need to do a biopsy immediately to confirm that you have cancer, but by the looks of your scan, I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I need to actually confirm it, which makes sense, and to test it and see how we can fight it, right? So we go home, and we pull up to Haley's parents' house, and there's 10 cars in the driveway. All the family, all the relatives are there. And we walk in, and no one says a word, and we're just sobbing. The whole family, we cried for over an hour. And not a single word was said. I was just everybody was just processing what had happened. And so within a few days, we went to have the biopsy, and so there was still this minimal hope that maybe it's something else, right? Mm-hmm. So I was holding on to this glimmer of hope, even though at this point I just know I just expect the worst, And so she goes and has the biopsy. It doesn't take long. They just needed to cut her open and cut a little bit of the tumor out or look in there. And, it was maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And they came out and called us, the whole family, and we had to go in that conference room that you see in movies, right? You do not want to be in those rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we go in there and we're just waiting and waiting. And the doctor comes in and tells us, yep, it's what I said it was. And, immediately starts explaining a lot of things, and I'm not really processing anything, I'm just like, can't believe it. And her dad said, so my baby can't have kids? And she's like, no. And like, he thinks a little bit and he goes, so she can't have kids? Like, he could not
kind of grasp it
that it was over. And she explained a few more things. She stepped out, and this man broke. This is like a man I was intimidated by, that I was scared of.
Never saw this side of him.
He's a big burly man, loves to hunt, deep voice. Like when he's mad about something, it's terrifying, And I just saw this man break completely. We're all broken, but I saw him like I've never seen before. And it just was, to this day, that cry just sticks in my mind. But, after that, what's cool about her doctor, she took an attachment to Haley, really loved her, and she was actually holding Haley's hand when she came out of surgery, and was the one to tell her, it is what I thought, but I'm going to do whatever I can to help you, to really give her that peace. And so typically in the medical field, you want to get multiple opinions. And so we went down to MD Anderson and went around, and it was the same story everywhere. And we really got that feeling that the best option was the original doctor. Mm-hmm. So we went back to her, and she came up with a plan, and she started on chemo within a few days. And she did 9 weeks of carboplatin Taxol or something. They're crazy chemo names, but the 9th week when she finished was the week before our wedding. But one thing I always do like to speak about just speaks to Haley's maturity. After we confirmed that she was sick, that it was official, that night, we were devastated. I hadn't slept in 3 days. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. When I go through stress or trauma, I can't eat.
Yeah, no,
and
feel that.
And so we're sitting in her house, and my parents' house, and she sits me down, and she's got tears in her eyes, and she said, "If you want to move on, that's okay. Like, I'm not. All I'm going to give you is a broken life, and I know we're not married yet, and you didn't sign up for this. And if you want to move on, you are more than welcome, and no one will judge you."
God.
And it just broke me. Right. I mean, but that showed her maturity.
Heart of gold.
To want to release me. And I said, "Are you kidding me? Like, we're in this together."
You're like you react the same way my wife did.
We're riding this. Like, we're riding this to the end.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing.
Don't stop when it gets hard. Stop when you're done. And
I love that.
And I'm like, we're going to do this to the end. And, I hope that if it were me, that you would ride with me, And she was like, "Oh, I would." And so I was like, well, let's get this fixed. I had this hope that we were going to get her cured. And so, like I said, 9 weeks of chemo, finished the week before our wedding. She had lost all her hair, and we had to shave her head, which was that's hard for women. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And it was just all these steps of just her heart breaking a little bit more and more and more. And, it was just hard to watch someone so loving just get defeated over and over again.
I just want to, because I'd imagine this is you guys are about to get married.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was probably her, every girl wants to get married. Right. And so that was probably a really difficult time. And it's what do you do? Cause you at this point you're we want to get married, but you could have easily been oh, we're going to keep waiting. But you guys made that decision to do
that. We were going to stick to it. And her sister did a great thing and got her first look. Like, as soon as we found out she was going to be on chemo, she got her first look scheduled like the next week, where she could wear a wedding dress with her natural hair. And I could see her in her natural form, because after 9 weeks of chemo, the steroids made her
blow up. Yeah.
blow up. She had no hair. So I'm very grateful that her sister got that done and taken care of, and I got to see her, and she says she counts that as our wedding day, because where I saw her, how she looked. And but anyways, so the wedding came, and it was, I was standing up on the altar, and I was like, I'm gonna break down, I just know it, and she walked out, and I just lost it, because I was already emotional. Everybody that said that they weren't coming to the wedding over the last year called back and said, we're going to be there because of the news breaking.
What this meant.
And it was just people were standing around the church. There were so many. And there wasn't a dry eye in that church. It's on my page. You can see the pastor breaking down, talking,
saw it.
Saying, there's difference between a contract and a covenant. Contract says, I do this for you, you do this for me. But a covenant is you love unconditionally. You do it because you need to do it.
Did you know when you guys were going to get married that, like, how much time she had left? Or, like, did you know the seriousness of it at that point?
We didn't find out the results of the chemo until 3 days after the wedding. So we had hope. The plan was that the chemo was going to shrink the tumors so we could do surgery and then do chemo again. Because there was so much tumor growth that it was such an overwhelming surgery. So we had hope that the chemo had worked and done its job, and so we go. This is 3 days after we just got married, and we find out that the chemo didn't work at all, and that the tumors actually grew on the chemo, and so she was like, "We're gonna have to reassess. Y'all go on your honeymoon. I'll come up with a new plan." And so I could tell the doctor wanted to say more, but wasn't saying it. And so I asked everybody, her family, can you step out? I need to talk to the doctor. So everybody stepped out, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like silent for a few seconds. And I just looked at her and I said, she's dying, isn't she? She said she's got 6 months.
God.
And I just broke. Like, I was sobbing, and the doctor started comforting me, and I said, well, I can't tell her that. I can't utter those words to her face, and you're going to have to tell her. And she said, I know. I wanted to take another week to see if I could come up with something else.
Yeah.
But from my experience, she doesn't have a lot of time left. And she said, well, go on your honeymoon and have a good time. That's one thing I respect about her, was that if you asked, she was going to be straight up with you. She wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. The doctor, was going to be honest with you. And the only reason I don't think she told Haley in that appointment was so we could go on our honeymoon. But because I asked her, she respected me enough to tell me she wasn't going to lie to me. And so I had to walk into that waiting room and look at her in her face, and knowing that this was our last trip, probably.
Did you, I've always said that when I got released out of prison on an appeal bond and waiting for the ultimate decision of my fate, that there was a dark cloud over my life, that I wasn't truly free. I didn't know what tomorrow held. And my worst fear was to be torn away from my family again. Yeah. That was the most painful thing, because it felt like I got murdered. It felt like I died. It felt like somebody killed me. Yeah. And my family witnessed it. Now, did you ever feel like there was, when you're on your honeymoon's supposed to be that hooray, we got married. Let's have a good time. Let's make love. Let's make love. Let's be intimate. Let's spend.
But you didn't tell her though, right?
Nope. I didn't tell her. I had this dark cloud over me.
So you had to bear that yourself.
I had this burden the entire trip. And we were laying in the hammock one night. We went to Hawaii. And she's like, I hope I can make it. I hope this isn't our last trip. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's not. We're going to have many more trips. You're going to fight. You're going to fight like hell. We're going
You're trying to convince
Yeah,
yourself.
and I'm like, and I'm lying to her. Like, I'm lying to her and it just broke my heart. It was one of the biggest burdens I ever carried and I didn't know till
Well, you
later.
did have more trips though. I
Yeah.
mean, and I
Yeah.
want, like, let's go into that because I mean, dude, timeline wise, right? I was trying to figure it out. And then when you told me more, I was like, wow, like you did get more trips. Like you know,
So basically we come back from the honeymoon and the doctor says, okay, I've got a plan. There's a doctor I trained under. He works at Sloan Kettering. He's very radical. He's one of the best in the business when it comes to ovarian cancer surgeries. They call it debulking surgeries. And if you want a chance, I would go to him. And it's hard for doctors to release because, I mean, doctors they're protective of their patients and they can have egos, right? But for her to say, there's a surgeon that I think can pull this off and I want you to go see him, speaks volumes to.
She cared about you.
Yeah. And so, her dad instantly, walked out of the room. I was instantly on the phone. This guy's like very famous, high demand, and he calls enough times where he gets an appointment. So we fly to New York and we're in the waiting room they call us back and he walks in and he's got tears. And I'm like, here we go again, and he says, I have a daughter your age, and I honestly cannot imagine what you're going through and what this family has gone through. This dude is one of the greatest surgeons, like, is very successful and like very well known. And he was so sympathetic and and relates to his patients so well that it's so admirable to me. But he said, I looked at your scan and I'm going to agree to operate. He's like, but if you were older, I would not be doing, this is going to be major, like what I'm about to do to your body. And we may not even be successful. It's like, I don't even know till I get in there. So, but I'm going to give it my best.
What's up, guys? We just wanted to take a quick moment to thank our main sponsor for today's episode, Just Meats. We've been testing out the Just Meats products for the last few weeks, and we absolutely love them. A few of my personal favorites are the Hawaiian, teriyaki beef and chicken, and the braised beef as well. Just Meats is a meal prep service fueled purely by grass-fed, grass-finished meats. Every Just Meats product comes with a pound of meat prepped and ready to go. Each Just Meats products comes with 4 servings. Every serving is 30 grams of protein or more. The ingredients are extremely clean and allergy friendly. And Just Meats offers a variety of chicken, pork, and beef products and has over 15 different flavor options to choose from. And not to mention, they come out with a subscriber exclusive flavor each month, and the raspberry barbecue chicken was incredible. You can create a one-time order to try out the Just Meats products, or you can sign up now for a subscription to have great quality protein delivered to your doorstep each month. So guys, use code GETBACK to get $25 off your order. And first-time subscribers get 20% off their order and an additional $25 when they use code GETBACK at checkout. Subscribers continue to get 10% off their order each month. And guys, subscribers have exclusive access to specialty meat flavors that change monthly. You don't want to miss this. So check out Just Meats products at justmeats.com and make sure you use code GETBACK. Now back to the episode.
So this whole time, I think it's a waste of time because I feel like I'm the only one in the room that knows she has 6 months. So I'm like, this is a waste. Why are we doing this? I didn't know till years later, that when we were on our honeymoon, her parents went and saw another doctor and they told them she's got 6 months. So I didn't even know that till years later. That they were carrying the burden and I was carrying
and
the
you
burden.
didn't even know they were carrying it too.
They probably didn't know you were carrying it.
Yeah, they didn't know. So, so he schedules her in for surgery. We fly home, we fly back. And, we don't know what to expect. But I feel like he was like, if you see me within 5 hours, not a good sign. And I fully expected to see him walk out within 5 hours, So we're sitting in the waiting room and we're all wearing our Team Haley shirts. And because I had these shirts made because I was going to do a triathlon to raise awareness.
I love that.
Yeah. To ovarian cancer. So we're on the waiting room. We've all got these teal shirts on it, say Team Haley. And a nurse comes out about every hour. All right, surgery's going well. He's removed her spleen and gallbladder. Okay, an hour later, come back. Okay, appendix is gone. Part of her stomach's gone. Okay, as the hours tick by, after 5 hours goes by, I'm like, wait a minute, this is going well. So 9 hours goes by. We've been there since all day. I mean, we're exhausted mentally, physically. They call us back to the conference room. We go back there and he comes in there and he's just real nonchalant. All right, surgery went well. And I removed her omentum, spleen, gallbladder, appendix, foot of her colon,
Oh my God.
both ovaries, her uterus, 4 lymph nodes, I think part of her liver, lining of her diaphragm, lining of her bladder.
Oh my gosh.
And we're just like, and he's like, so recovery's going to be at least 3 weeks in the hospital, a year outside. Like it's going to be a while. And, and like he goes to walk out, and we're like, wait, how much cancer did we get out? Oh, I got 100% visible. All cancer's gone. And we're like, what?
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, I got 100% visible cancer. He's like, but let me be clear. The trauma that I have done to her body is equivalent to driving 70 miles an hour into a brick wall. Like, this is major, what she has been through. And so he's like, recovery is going to be, her life is forever changed. Like, this is serious.
How do you even live with all that, like without all that? Like, it seems like
it's crazy.
Yeah. Like,
and what another part of, I thought of it as a miracle. And another part of the miracle is he was very sure that she was going to have a colostomy bag after surgery. She didn't have one.
Wow.
And so we just couldn't believe the success. And so I was the one that went and woke her up from surgery. And I got to tell her, she wakes up, she's like, how'd it go? And I'm like, you don't have any cancer in you anymore. Anything that's left is microscopic. He removed any visible tumor.
Wow.
And she just was like, you could see her heart rate go up on the monitor. Like it was that exciting for her.
Yeah.
Because when she went back for surgery, there was a high chance she was going to die on the table.
Yeah.
So I had just married her a month ago, and now I'm saying bye as if she's going to die. If she went back. I mean, that was awful. I'm a young kid, and to have to do that. And so she went through her recovery and did very well, and definitely had some tough days. I mean, passing out from pain, it was so intense.
Yeah.
But, I remember when she finally got to fly home, she was ready to be home, because we had to stay in New York for a while, and, for her to be able to go see the doctor regularly for checkups and stuff.
So you guys get through this major surgery, right? And you start running Ironmans.
Well, so the surgery, when I was flying back and forth during her recovery, so I'd spend the weekend or the week with her. So I spent that week of the surgery with her. Then I flew back to go back to work. Then I flew back for another week, so I was going back and forth to try to work my job. And when I flew home, I was going to do that triathlon I signed up for. It was unfortunate that I had signed up for it months prior and that the surgery happened and that she couldn't be there or the family. That wasn't a big deal. But I flew home to do it. And, but I had reached out to a buddy of mine named Brandon, and he had done an Ironman previously in 2015 to raise awareness to MS. And he did it with another buddy of mine named Tyler. And I watched them both do it. And I went to high school with them. They were younger. Didn't really know them, but I knew of them. And so I'd reached out to Brandon. I said, I'm doing the CB&I triathlon, and I don't know what I'm doing. Can I borrow your expensive bike? I was inspired by you doing it. And without a beat, just like Brandon always has, is, of course, when can I come over? So he comes over, pulls out this expensive bike, and he's going to let me borrow it, that's a lot of trust right there.
That's a lot. No.
And he's like, I'm going to do what someone did to me, and I'm going to challenge you to do an Ironman next year. And I was like, you're psycho. Like, I just had a wife, had major surgery. Like, I don't have the time for that. I don't have all the stuff you need to train with.
It's a lot.
And so it laid it on my heart. And I was like, I had seen that race in my hometown years prior, and I always said I was going to do it. And so he planted this seed, and I couldn't shake it. And so I flew back to New York, and Haley's in and out of pain, and I'm taking care of her. And she's wakes up, and I said, Haley, I think I want to do an Ironman for you and to raise awareness to ovarian cancer. And she literally was like, you're nuts. And like passed out from pain.
Yeah.
And to this day, I remember it because it was kind of entertaining or pretty funny. But she knows me. She knows when I set my mind to something, when I make a commitment that I
Pedal
stick
to the metal.
Yeah, my word is my bond, and I don't like
Love
to go
that.
back on my word, because that speaks to who you are if you come back on your word. So
it's your ultimate character.
yeah, I flew home, and my buddy Brandon texted me. He's like, hey, meet me and Tyler for dinner. And again, I don't know these guys very well. I just know of them. So I meet them for dinner, and they look at me and they said, if you do the Ironman, we'll do it with you.
Wow.
We'll train with you. We'll do it together. And so, how can I turn that down? And so it's still in my heart. And I kept praying about it. And, I feel like God gives you peace. Or I pray for God to shut the door if I'm not supposed to do it. But if the door keeps continuing to be open or opened wider, then that's typically a sign for me.
Yeah.
And so like a day or two later, Tyler, who I just met, texted me. He was like, hey, can you come over? My dad wants to meet you. So I come over, and his dad walks out with a brand new triathlon bike. And he was like, I want you to ride for your wife. This is for you. And like had tears, and was like, I believe in your story. I believe in you. And I think you should do this. And it just like, that was God saying it's time.
Yeah.
Well, so you finished the Ironman.
Yeah, I trained for a whole year and did the Ironman. And that was an incredible day. And Haley was behind the finish line with my medal. They let her back there.
Wow.
So when I crossed, she
So
was there.
Where was Haley as far as in her medical conditions?
It'd been, the Ironman was April of 2017. Her surgery was April of 2016. So it was a full year, and she was doing very well. The recovery, she was up and walking and doing normal stuff, going to
And at this point in time, like, did you think that like we beat it and like everything?
No, because
you guys always.
Told me, the surgeon told me, there's still microscopic can't like this. We knew from the beginning that
She's in remission. She's in remission.
Remission is
It's a weird word.
It's a weird word for me, because I kind of say the word dormant. It's like the cancer is asleep for a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
Just hanging
remission
around.
isn't really a word I use, but I knew from the day of her diagnosis that the type of cancer she had, the grade that it was, that this was going to be a battle forever for us. I mean, that cancer started growing back within a few months. I mean, getting her scans, there were small signs of tumor growth. So it was already growing.
It was growing back.
But typically cancer is either low grade or high grade. Well, she had both, which is extremely rare. So low grade is treatable with, you can't treat it very well with chemo, but you can with surgery. And high grade, you treat it well with chemo, but not surgery, and it grows faster. So
in this time frame then, right, because you have a son, Weston, who 2019, is that right? He was born.
Yeah, he was born. Yes.
So those years in between there, right, because again, what was it? 2016 was when you guys got married. So the days after, this is we're talking about 3 years in between before having Weston.
Yeah.
You guys got to spend some like good time together. I mean, like,
oh yeah, it was,
because again, dude, back up to like, you were told she's got 6 months.
Yeah.
And now she's at the finish line of you running an Ironman, 3 years. And now you're talking about Weston coming into the picture. So like those years in between there, those had to be like some really, I mean, for you being told you only had 6 months left to now, I get to be with my wife
they were good. They were, we had like ups and downs of where we were like, okay, we got to find she was constantly having to try new treatments because we were trying to keep the cancer growth, like slow it down. So she was taking like hormone drugs and stuff and to slow the growth, and we were trying to figure out the right one. And so, yeah, we had some good years in there. And that's the only reason that...
Did she get to a point where, because again, you just like when you were naming everything that they removed.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I'm thinking like, how do you even as a human, like function properly? Right. Like, was her health of like, was she, what was her condition in terms of like your guys' ability to like,
she didn't have a lot of stamina. She'd get tired very easily. I mean, our life was definitely limited. She was on a lot of medication. You had to be mindful of her energy. You couldn't just like, we're going to go on this trip and go on a hike. She couldn't do any of that. She couldn't go on a jet ski. I mean, with the boundary, there was a lot, she can't do roller coasters and things like that. And so
where did Weston, because again, like that was probably like super scary for her, for you. Well, but always something that you said she wanted to be a mother, you wanted to be a father. Like,
well, the night of our wedding, one of our family friends who Haley nannied for their child for years and became very close with that child, that the mother came up to us at our wedding and said, you guys deserve to be parents. And if you're ever in a position to be, I will be your surrogate. And we're like, wow. Like that's an amazing gesture. And so I was under the impression that we just weren't going to have kids because they don't let you adopt children if you're terminal. Like they don't want the child to go into a household with uncertainty. And then I was also faced with, I'm going to be a single dad. I know that she's not going to make it to the forever. And, is it fair to the child to bring a child into that situation? So we really took time to think on it. Well, she got to a point where we were in a very good place. We had found a drug that seemed to be working really well. And we honestly thought she had quite a bit of time.
When she got the at this point in time, she wasn't having to take steroids and all, like, was she able to like start to get back to like feeling probably not like,
a little bit. She was never the same after that surgery. Never the same. And she had to go through menopause at 22, 23 years old. Wow. So the hormones through menopause are insane. I mean, we'd be sitting here and all of a sudden she'd just have sweat from a hot flash or something. And And so dealing with that and struggling with doing that as such a young woman, it was frustrating for her. And the steroids and the menopause caused her to gain almost 100 pounds. And she gained a lot of weight. And, when you're in the summers of Texas with 100 extra pounds going through menopause, she definitely had some meltdowns.
That had to be frustrating for her too.
So, basically we got to a point where things were looking really good and we were very, the doctor's very optimistic. So we're like, okay, we'll consider doing IVF and having a child. So we go through the process and, we get a viable egg. It's from an egg donor. So it's half me, half egg donor. And then we implanted it into our friend Jacqueline, who offered to be the surrogate. So
that's so crazy.
Yeah. While she was pregnant with our son, Weston, Haley's cancer started coming back like more aggressively. I mean, it changes in an instant.
Right.
It's just crazy. So she had to go, had to deal with that. And so Weston was born 2019, which was, there's video of Haley's reaction to him being born, and it's just the most heartwarming because that's just what she's always dreamed of, right? And obviously, would she love Weston to be half her? Of course, but she loved that child like it was half her. And but him being born was a major day for us, to become parents when we thought we weren't going to be parents. So, but yeah.
So you have Weston, and then obviously sometime shortly after Weston's born, things obviously got bad.
Yeah, I mean, even after he was born, we had times where it would get bad, and then we'd find like a drug that kind of worked, and it'd get good again. And so it felt like every time we were at the end of the road, we found a solution. And so it got to a point where I was just so numb to bad news.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah. Where it's just you expect the worst at all times.
Now you're in just in survival mode.
Yeah.
You're just like every day is survival.
And so, we had a big setback. I think it was 2020.
Yeah.
She hadn't gone number 2 in like 2 days and was getting some pain and some pressure and was dealing with some issues, and 2 days turned into 3. And then she started getting in a lot of pain, and she hadn't gone to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay.
Were they concerned about that? Like taking all that stuff out? That's what I was thinking when I'm like, you take all that out of your stomach with your digestive. Well, you mentioned that like the colonoscopy was something that they thought that they may have had to do from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Because like, was her digestive system... Well, you said it was like kind of a miracle that she didn't have to have it originally.
He thought there was more tumors on her colon than there was. So he thought he was going to have to remove so much of the colon that he'd have to put a colostomy bag. And so it turned out he didn't have to. So we're dealing with these issues that she's not going to the bathroom. It's been 3 days. She's in a lot of pain. And so I called the ambulance. And one big thing I've learned, if you've got someone that's sick regularly and needs to go to the hospital, don't mess around with going to the waiting room. Call the ambulance. They'll get them
in like that. Exactly.
So we just stopped messing around with the waiting room. So I called the ambulance. They pick her up. They take her in. And this was during COVID. And so we couldn't all go be with her. So her mom was with her, and I had Weston. I remember we made a sign that said, "We love you, Mommy," and we're standing in the parking lot, and she looked out the window, and that made her day, right? And to see that, and so her doctor told her, they did a scan on her and said, "You are blocked. You have a huge colon blockage. We got to get you in emergency surgery." And so I take her in, and it was like late at night, and it felt like the surgery took forever. And she comes out, the doctor, and she's like exhausted, because these surgeries to put a colostomy bag shouldn't take that long. She was like, that was intense. She was like, I lost her on the table, brought her back. Like, she was like, she was on the verge of death with how bad the blockage was. And so,
she was in the hospital for a while.
Yeah, so they put the colostomy bag on. So now, on top of everything she's had to deal with and we've had to deal with, she now has a bag of poop that's going to be on her all the time.
Yeah.
And so,
how frustrating was that? Because when my dad was sick and in the hospital, it was the same time it was during COVID. And I'm telling you, there was one day, bro, I thought that they called the police because they wouldn't let me in the hospital. I'm like, what do you mean? There's 1 hour a day and only one person gets to, I don't know how it was where you were, but where we were, you probably couldn't go there, or it was you or her mom or her dad or one of you guys for 1 hour a day, and that's it. Get out.
We had to rotate, and it was tough.
That's insane. That's crazy.
On her, and I had to learn as the caregiver how to change her bag and how to put a new bag on.
You talked about advocating.
Yeah.
Dude, there was nothing more frustrating than trying to advocate and you can't, you're not even allowed to be there.
Yeah.
Like it,
Yeah.
you know, it was just a scary, weird, really time for anybody who had a loved one in the hospital. Like you would have slept there every night if you could. If you would have been with her 24 hours a day, every day, the same way I would have. Like, what do you mean one person a day for 1 hour a day?
Yep.
That's just like an
I can't imagine.
insane asylum. Like, what do you mean? My dad's dying.
Yeah.
I can't, if I get COVID, like, okay, I get COVID, I'll sign off on it. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just know that had to be frustrating for you. Because I was frustrated in that.
Navigating COVID in the hospital.
It's very frustrating because we have a lot of friends and we've had a great support system and they all wanted to come see her. And so, but now we're navigating this life that was already difficult. Now we've got this new challenge with this bag, which is not easy to deal with. And typically it's lower on the body. She had to put hers higher because of all that surgery.
Is like what, 1, 2, 1.5, 2?
Yeah.
So like you guys are like,
he's like baby
newborn.
I know. Yeah. So we're dealing with all these setbacks.
How was that? Because I mean, you were really like, if she was in the hospital, I mean, you were the mom and the dad. Like at that time, I mean, you had no choice but to be like, Haley was in the hospital doing what she had to do. Like, you know, that's a role that most people don't.
Yeah. I mean, it was a challenge,
and you're working.
Yeah. But I was lucky enough to have my parents and her parents live like a block over.
Yeah. We talked about that.
And my parents live about a mile away. So I had help when I needed it.
That's so
and I have a great friend group if I needed help. So I always had help when I needed it. But it was dealing with this new challenge. And, you know, one thing that, you know, we were talking about the COVID thing, she was just so depressed in the hospital because this was a major setback.
Yeah.
You know, this is another thing that has hit her image where she doesn't feel pretty.
Sure.
And it smells and it's just not, it's not a great thing.
Nobody wants that.
I texted all of our friends because right outside, there was a window by the elevator. There was a parking garage that was like right there. I was like, so I texted all of our friends and our family and our support system. And I was like, come meet here at 5 p.m. at the top of the, so there's like 30 people. It's on my page. And so I told her, I was like, let's go for a walk. And I walked her up there and there was everybody waving at her, you know, and that was a big pick me up for her. And I was happy I could help do that. But I'm just so blessed for the friends that I have that could just immediately go, we'll be there, you know. And
so from that point forward, because you guys redid your wedding.
Yep.
And that was like probably not too long after this where you guys made this decision. What was the reasoning? And like, I know that was cool because I saw some videos from that, which was
we were told that the odds of us making it to our 5-year anniversary were like 0.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
That would never happen. That was like,
so that's why
we got married. And so when that 5-year came around and it was literally almost to the day because the weekend fell right on the same day almost, I was like, I should throw her another wedding where she doesn't feel so terrified because she knew she was dying. She just we all kind of knew it. And you couldn't enjoy this wedding that she had planned her whole life. You know, women love to plan their weddings, right?
Yeah.
And she couldn't enjoy it because she was worried about her health. I mean, it was terrible. It really put a shadow on her special day. So I thought, what if I threw a small surprise wedding where she got to wear a dress again and like do everything just on a smaller scale and just surprise her for our anniversary. So I called up, we're good friends with Pastor Carey and Chris Shook at the Woodlands Church. And I called up Chris Shook and I was like, hey, I got this idea. You know, what do you think? And she was like, we're doing it. I was like, okay, well, I need to, you know, what does it cost to rent the chapel? She goes, don't worry about it. We're going to do this.
It's amazing.
And one of her daughter-in-laws does flowers and they have a video team there and they have photography and they have music.
That's amazing.
And they just took it and ran with it. And I got her friends. They helped me plan everything. We did an invite list, got the dress. I mean, everything. And so the plan was we went to her family lake house, me and her, and we were going to have a nice weekend together. And I was going to take her to a really fancy restaurant. I was like, you need to dress up really nice. I'm going to wear my suit, to have the excuse of wearing the suit. And then I had Chris Shook call and say, hey, I heard that you're celebrating your 5-year, and me and Chris are so happy for you guys that we got a gift card for you. Can you come by the chapel and pick it up?
Gosh.
So we drive up and we walk up, and I open the doors, and it's like 50 of her friends and family.
Wow.
And everyone's just clapping, and her dress is sitting there.
That's amazing.
And before she could even process it, they ushered her in the side room, got her dressed in her dress. And I wanted her to have that wedding again, but with being able to be happy.
Right. Because she was
and be able to like enjoy the moment. And so
forget about everything.
It's pretty hard to believe that me and the help of her family and friends, that we planned a complete surprise wedding.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it was pretty awesome, and I was honored to do it.
So somewhere after that wedding, I think you told me 2022, something really shifted, and there was obviously a big turn in Haley's overall situation in her health.
Yeah. So we noticed that in her bag, her output was becoming less, and she was having those cramps again, like a blockage. And so we had some scans done. Even though she was still getting output, it just wasn't the same like it was. And she was throwing up a lot. And so we had some scans done, and we went in for a routine, to find out the results, and her doctor came in and said, this isn't good. Like, got a blockage again. And once you have a bag and you have a blockage, like, what are you going to do now? You can't reroute it or anything. So she said, I don't know how you're still having output, but you definitely have a blockage. And she gave us options. She said, here, we can do treatment. We don't even know if the treatment's going to work, but we can try. But you run the risk of having a laceration with your blockage, and the death will not be very good, because you can just, all the
inside of you.
Yeah, the poop goes inside you, and it's a poisoning. It poisons your body. And she goes, secondly, we could try surgery, but that is extremely high risk. Extremely. And she was like, number 3, you can go live your life. And we were devastated. And I remember we went over to my mom's house, and everybody came over, and she was in the backyard laying there's a couch on her parents' back porch, and she was screaming how angry she was. I mean, I'd never seen her like that. And, we kept trying to come up with what we were going to do and having more tests done, because we just couldn't accept that it was over. And so me and Haley, one night, we just sat down and we talked about it. And I said, as much as I would love for you to get treatment, I don't want you to die in a terrible way in my arms that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
I would rather enjoy our time together. And so we just made the decision that it was time. And she was having so many issues with her bag, and her skin would get super irritated. And she was throwing up a lot, because it's signs of a blockage. It's telling you they can't take anymore.
Right.
So, those little blue bags that you have at the hospital, I literally have post-traumatic stress when I see it, because I saw her throw up so many times.
It was bags, yeah.
And so when I see it, after she passed, I literally grabbed every one of them and donated, and I didn't want them in the house anymore. I couldn't look at them anymore.
Yeah.
But we made that decision to live our life, and we were going to do as much as we could with what we had. And so, a few weeks after that, I was in my emotions, and I expressed myself through video, right? I like to make videos, and I've been making videos since I was 7. I've been on YouTube and making videos about whatever, and so I was never a TikToker. I just had a TikTok to watch videos. And so I made a video that was expressing how sad I felt. And I showed it to Haley, and she was like, you should post that. So a few days later, I think it was Thanksgiving, I posted it, put my phone up, had Thanksgiving, opened it up, and I was like, what's happening? It was like going viral, and
Yeah.
I had never experienced that before. And, I was getting messages from friends like, hey, you just came up on my For You page, and like, what's going on? And so I just couldn't believe it. And then people started following me, and I was like, I'm not a TikToker. I don't have any videos. And so I realized that this was what me and Haley had been praying for. We had always wanted to share the story between us, the love that we had, how you got to keep pushing forward, and just all the aspects of the story, Weston and the Iron Man and the redo wedding and the surrogacy, just all the miracle of the surgery. And so some of my friends were like, you should keep posting. So I posted another short clip, and that one went viral. And then me and Haley sat down. We were like, you want to do this? Like, you want to document what hospice is like for young people? She was like, yeah, this is what we've been waiting for. Let's share this. If we can help somebody, our mission here on earth is to bring people to Christ, right? I mean, we're not here to work. We're not here to have fun. We're here to bring people home.
That's right.
And if we can share our story and save one person, it's worth it.
It's good.
And so we just started documenting, and I just started filming everything we did together as a family. And there's a lot I didn't share, And
but you guys got to go through that process there where you finally made the decision, like, you know what? No more drugs, no more treatment. Let's just enjoy being together.
Yeah.
No hospital. Like, let's just be together, right? To, at some point, it had to come to the end. And obviously, you get to that point of the end of someone's life, whatever and the last couple of days are obviously, it's close, and you kind of start to feel that and know that. And I experienced that with my dad, and it's talk me through that. And
so there is one night that happened a couple months before she passed that I consider the worst night of my life, which is crazy to say, considering she died a few months later, and I still consider this one of the worst nights of my life. I think I had become in a fight or flight mode, and I was so numb to everything, and that every time we were out of options, we somehow figured out something else to do. So maybe my mind didn't fully accept that we were there,
we didn't have
that she was going to die. We're a couple months out from her death. She did not look good. We had talked about her death. I knew it was coming. There was no denying it. We're in hospice, but it's like maybe I didn't accept it. And so we had made this decision that she wanted to pass away at the lake house. And we were at the lake, and we had just gotten a new hospice nurse, and she had met with Haley a couple of days before we went up to the lake, and was worried about her. She was not looking good. I mean, to this day, I thought we were there pretty close. Well, her hospice nurse calls me at the lake, and she's like, Taylor, I think she's down to a week. And, I think if you're ready to be at the lake, it's time.
Yeah.
And I was like, a week? And she starts telling me these signs I'm going to see. And so then I get this, that pit in your stomach where you're sick almost. Well, it starts developing early in the day. I go back inside, and again, I don't say anything. I just keep it to myself because we have friends coming. I wanted her to enjoy that. I wanted her mind to be as clear as possible. But I had this cloud starting to build over me. Her friends get there, our friends, and we're hanging out, and I'm like where you're forcing a smile, but you're dying on the inside.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. And I started seeing these signs that she was at the end of life. And then I started panicking internally. I wasn't voicing anything. then we go to bed, and I fall asleep, and I wake up out of a dead sleep at 4 a.m. And I'm like, for some reason, I'm convinced that she's gone. Like, it's over. Like, she's done. And I roll over, and I'm checking her pulse, and she wakes up, and I'm like, and I roll back over. I'm laying there, and she's like, "What's going on? What's wrong?" I was like, "Nothing. Just go back to sleep." And I had this wave. To this day, I don't know why it happened, but I had this wave of hopelessness, despair, loneliness, sadness, depression, anxiety, just all at once come over me.
Yeah.
And I broke. It's like, that was the first time I really cried since we found out we were out of options. I didn't even really cry the day we found out because I was so numb.
Yeah.
And I just let it out. I mean, I could not stop. I could not get a hold. I've never been able to not get a hold of myself. And I was just beside myself. And here she is in hospice dying, and she's comforting me. You know, that's just who she was, her heart, you know, and you're going to be fine. You're strong. Like, you're going to be great. I'm proud of you. And
wow.
And I'm just broken. I'm dying. And, you know, I've never understood suicide, but in that moment, that feeling that I felt, that is the closest I've ever been. That's when I fully grasped what it's like to be at the end of your own, like, where you're ready to be done. Because if I had to live in a much longer in that mindset, if I had been alone when this happened, I don't know if I'd be sitting here.
Yeah.
And I say this to this day, that's the closest I think I've ever been to hell on earth. Like, that must be what hell's like, those emotions that I experienced. And so,
wow.
I called my mom, and I woke her up, and she was comforting me. I mean, I cried for 3 hours straight. I could not get a hold of myself, you know, but to fast forward, you know, I realize looking back now that if that not had happened and I had finally accepted the fate, the moment she took her last breath, I don't know, you know, she was still alive to help me accept the fate and comfort me through that process. You know, I'm so grateful that God allowed me to finally accept what was going to happen with Haley still here.
Yeah.
To help me through that. You know, I always called her my human Xanax pill. You know, because she could just tell when I was upset. She just had a way of calming me down.
Yeah.
And so I was so blessed that she could help me through that. And so,
because the alternative is that you would have tried to figure that out when she was gone. And
I know. So I'm just grateful for that. And so, you know, towards the end, so it was a Wednesday. She hadn't gone to the bathroom in 2 days. And she was struggling. She was skin and bones. I mean, it was so sad. And she's throwing up, and she started getting really lethargic and like having a hard time keeping her eyes open. And people don't know this, but typically in hospice, you're on so many meds that it kind of puts you into this sleep state. And that's how you end up eventually passing away. But she refused to take any hard medicine because she wanted to be awake. She didn't want to miss anything. She wanted to be aware of her surroundings. And so I noticed without any hard medicine, she was getting sleepy and having a hard time staying awake. And so I woke her up that morning, Wednesday morning, and I got her in her chair, and she was just so confused, didn't know where she was. And I was like, well, let's go try to go to the bathroom. So get her up, walk her to the bathroom. And she spends like 30 minutes trying to go pee and cannot do it. And so I pick her up to get her in her walker. And she has this episode that to this day, it was awful, where she was just like staring up, and she was shaking, and I'm freaking out. You know, Weston's in the other room, and I took out my phone to film it so I could send it to Marcy, the hospice nurse, because I didn't know what was happening or what to do.
Yeah.
So I got like 5 seconds of it, sent it to her, and she responded with, "This, we're very close. I'm on my way." So I wheeled her back into the living room, and I'm going to help her up, and she just goes completely limp. And I pick her up, and she's like, weighs nothing at this point, and my adrenaline's going. So it was like, she was light as a feather to me, and I'm holding her, and I'm screaming out, "Don't go like this. Please don't go like this. I can't see this happen." Like, and Weston's coloring in the living room, and he runs over, and he's watching his father just like,
How old is he?
he's 4 at that time. And I'm screaming out to God, and I'm very upset. He's scared. And I'm begging God, don't take her like this, please. Like, you can't do this. And so I pick her up, and I set her in her chair, and she just all of a sudden goes, she just like comes to. It was the weirdest. And she's like, "What's going on? Why are you crying?" And I'm like,
I know that. I know that stage.
I'm like, "Do you not know what?" She was like, "I've just been in my chair." I'm like, "Did you know we were in the bathroom for 30 minutes? She's like, "I've been in my chair all morning." And I'm like, what is, then I know we're there. Like, she's hallucinating.
She's getting that one burst of energy left.
So I call my mom and ask her to come pick up Weston to take him to his summer camp at the church. So, and then Haley's friend Julia comes over. Haley's, we consider her second mom, Miss Sharon, who was the next door neighbors growing up. She comes over. Her sister had been there that morning visiting with Haley. She was at an appointment. Her mom and dad were at the lake house we had called them to come. And then my mom came back. And so we were all, and she had always said, after we decided that we were going to do it at the lake, and I had that whole episode, she decided that it was probably better to do it at home where I was more comfortable. And I agreed with that. So the last few months she had been saying, "I want to die in my chair, surrounded by the people I love." And so she was in her chair, and we were surrounded by everybody she loves. And I called up my good friend Daniel Lumpy, who's a pastor at the Loft Church. And I said, we were supposed to meet that day because I talked to him regularly about my struggles. And I said, "Hey man, I need you to come pray." And he was like, "On my way." And he was at my house in like 5 minutes, comes in, and we gather around Haley, and we prayed for her peace and for her to be accepted into the kingdom, and that it was all going to be okay, and that I was going to make it, and that Weston was going to be okay. And we pray, and Marcy's there, the hospice nurse, and Haley comes to for a split second, and she sees everybody that she loves surrounded. So she's looking around. She's like, "This is it, isn't it? This is the end." She's like, "This is just how I thought it was going to be." It was just like, and we were like, "It's okay." She started getting really scared, right? And I was like, "It's okay. It's okay. We just wanted to be around you. We're just wanted to be with you." And then I knew I needed to go get Weston immediately. So Julia drove me to the church. We got Weston and brought him back, and everyone stepped out, and I brought Weston in, and I was like, "This is it, buddy. Do you understand what's going on?" And he looked at me like he knew what was going on, but didn't want to say it. Yeah. And I just said, "I've been telling you that mommy was going to go be with Jesus. Well, he's coming. And it may not be right now, but it's very, very, very soon." And I was like, "It's nothing you did. You didn't do anything wrong. You were an amazing son. Your mother is very proud of you. I'm proud of you. You're an incredible child, and there's nothing you did wrong that caused any of this. And I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I will always be the best father I can be to you." And he started holding her hand, and he was, it was scary for him. And, he finally understood that this was the time that I've been talking about for a long time, that eventually Jesus was going to come take his mom home. And she came to, and she looked at him and said, "I love you, son." And that was the last thing she ever said. She laid her head back down and she never spoke again, and went into this coma state. And all the friends and family, were coming over. And I mean, I saw people laying on her legs and sobbing, people I never thought I'd see cry. And you just saw how important she was to so many people. And I was just so touched by that. And so that Thursday went by, she was still in her chair and her breathing was changing. And I set up some chairs next to her chair where I could lay down that night, so I could lay with her, and we watched her. She loved Christmas, so we watched a Christmas movie, and I was able to lay with her. And then that night I was, her sister was making sure she had the meds she needed every 4 or 5 hours. For some reason, I was able to do everything in the caregiving, but I just couldn't bring myself to put a syringe of morphine under her tongue. It made me sick to my stomach to do that. And luckily her sister was like, "I can do it." And I was just so grateful for that, because it was just really hard. I don't know why that was so hard for me, but I guess because she was so against meds.
Yeah.
But she needed those meds to prevent her from being in any pain that she didn't need to be in.
Right.
So at 6:30 in the morning, her sister's shaking me awake. And I had been up and down through the night, checking on her and stuff. And she was like, "Hey, her breathing's changed. You got to come in here." So I jump up and I run in there and I sit next to her. I'm holding her hand and she's breathing very differently, but then she takes 3 long, deep breaths. And then that last one, she lets out this big sigh. That was it.
That's it.
And it felt like she reached into my body and took something with her, like something I will never get back. And I will never be the same. And she was just such an amazing person. And, my mind was spinning. I was sobbing. And I remember from reading Lee Strobel's book about the case for heaven. He talks about when people pass, they go up kind of in the ceiling area for a few seconds and then they continue on.
Yeah.
So when she passed, I literally looked up and I blew her. I knew she was up there, and I love you. And I know for a fact she was there and she saw that. And Haley's cousin was there, and he goes, he's real on the ball with stuff. And he was like, "All right, time of death, 6:38. Or no, 6:08. And I was like, "Did you say 6:08? It's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You're kidding me." I was like, I have my Iron Man tattoo, Isaiah 6:8, on my side of, I heard the voice of the Lord, "Who shall I send?" And I said, "Here am I, send me."
That's great.
And it was just like a sign that, that she was at peace. But the last real hard thing about that day that a lot of people don't know is, I called Marcy and I told her, she's passed, and so she could do all the things that hospice nurses are supposed to do. She lives about an hour away, so she was trying to get there. And Haley had passed. I'd been deceased for maybe an hour and a half by the time she got there. And our house was full of friends and family. And I met her out on the driveway, and she gave me a big hug. And, she'd become very attached to her. She never had a young patient like that. And so she said, "I'm going to ask you to do one last really hard thing for your wife." And I was like, "Okay, what do you need?" She's like, "I need you to carry her to the bedroom." I was like, "Okay, I can do it." She's like, "I can get somebody else." I was like, "No, it's my job. I can do it." So everyone steps out to the backyard. And if you've seen a lot of my videos, the backyard's like literally right by the chair. It's two big bay windows. And so I walk over and I go to pick her up, and you would expect, it's like organically to be in your arms, right? Well, she was pretty stiff at that point.
Yeah.
And that will stick with me forever, and I picked her up. She was not organically in my arms like I would like. And I glance outside the window and I see like 15 of my friends and family, like silently watching, and they just break. And they just tell me to this day, watching a 32-year-old man carry his deceased wife after they had watched us fight for 8 years and be together for 16. And knowing what I've been through and what she had been through and the sacrifices we both made for each other. And so I carried her into her room, and in our room, and I set her on the bed. And I remember as I set her down, I looked up as Christ said on the cross, "It is finished." Because my friends know, as much of a good caregiver I wanted to be and always be, if you don't think I had my days of struggle, of days where I was exhausted, where I felt like I couldn't do this anymore, of course, I'm human. But I just felt like 8 years of all this stuff I had to sacrifice and do and help her with and take care of her, which was my honor. It's not that I regret it, but it just came crashing down on me in that instance, that as I laid her down, that I had finished the race, that I had done what God asked me to do, and that it was finished. And it came crashing down in that one instant, and I just started to weep, that was my last act of service that I could do for her.
Yeah.
And it's something that'll stick with me forever.
Yeah.
But I was honored and blessed to do it for her.
Wow.
I don't regret anything.
Wow.
Just amazing, man. I mean, it's been emotional to sit here and listen to it, right? And
it's a long story.
You touched though, on, because when we had a conversation on the phone, like you kind of have prepared for this, right?
Yeah.
In a way. And so I think it's really unique, and it's funny because we were talking about the Nick episode and some of the just the real nasty things that you deal with. And I think the one thing that is amazing is Haley told you, post it.
Yeah.
Post the video.
Yeah.
This is what we waited for.
Yeah.
This is what we, and so there should be no guilt and shame. Anybody that's making you feel that, or is speaking that way, or making comments, they're lost, they're sick, and they need help, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a very small amount of people. But I want to touch on like where you're at now, because I think it's really amazing to see you as a father, to see the content that you're creating, because I think it's amazing. Me and Greg talk about it. It's like, it makes you, it is
inspiring.
It's inspiring as a father, but a single dad, some of these things that now you're having to deal with. And, it's only been a year. I mean, we're coming up on a year,
a couple months from a year. It's just crazy how fast time has gone by.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm anxious to what's your thoughts, where you're at now, your mission moving forward? And I think Haley would be proud of you for posting like this. I think it's inspiring. It really is.
I mean, I haven't spoke publicly about this, but one of our last conversations, she said to me as I was holding her hand in her chair, she's like, keep the story alive, keep it going, post about it. I want people to learn from me and have perspective, or go to the doctor. You don't know how many women have messaged me, I discovered I had cancer because
every day
of your story.
It's crazy.
I should go to the doctor.
And that's what we want.
Yeah.
And she was a huge advocate for women in ovarian cancer and breast cancer. And that's what she wanted. And she told me, she's like, if this can, because she knows my love for video. That's my artistic side. I like to tell stories through video. And I especially love to inspire through video. And she's like, if this could be something you do as your career for full time with Weston, and you can focus on being a dad, but also telling the story or going out and speaking or whatever that is. I want that for you.
Yeah.
I want that for you so bad, because she knows, it was hard to work a career when your wife is as sick as she was. And
Yeah, I can
I made a
imagine.
lot of sacrifices dealing with that. And she wanted nothing more for me to flourish. And she knew, which broke my heart, when we went to dinner literally 3 days after we found out we were out of options. And she said, I just know that after I'm gone, you're going to flourish and I won't be there to see it. And that broke me for her. She's always felt this guilt that she was holding me back from any success I could, because I was having to make sure she was first and whatever she needed, which was what I was supposed to do. But she felt that guilt. And so my mission now is to continue to inspire. And like I was saying earlier, I'm still, I enjoy sharing Weston, because I enjoy showing what I do with him as a dad. And if it can inspire another dad to do something with his son, then that's what I want. But there's another part of me. Do I want to share Weston with 3 million people? So I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because he didn't come up to me and say, hey, Dad, can you share me with 3 million?
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I haven't, I struggle with that. So there may come a time where I share him less, but I haven't really decided. So
Your story, man, makes me think of where it says in Matthew, but seek first the kingdom of heaven and all these other things will be given to you. And you was stepping up and being a caregiver for your wife. We can't help but to think, if this ever happens to our wife.
Yeah.
Right. And every day there is a man that gets challenged the way you got challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it says a lot about a man of faith, right?
Yeah.
A man of perseverance. I can only imagine, man, trying to go through work, having to fully focus on my task at work, but know that this is happening in my personal life. This is happening in my marriage. This is happening in my family. You having to juggle all of that, it's admirable. It's inspiring. And I think what's happening to you right now in your platform to be able to advocate towards carrying Haley's story and continuing to be an inspirational father for Weston. I mean, I'm about to have a little girl, man, and I mean, I want to have a boy one day.
Oh yeah.
And but even you as a father towards your son inspires me how I'm going to speak to my daughter, right? Because I always look at it as like, I know for a fact that you are training your boy to be a spitting image of you. And I expressed this earlier, that there was this one video with your son where it's so, I talked about this before in other podcasts when it comes to a father to son relationship. When Jesus was being baptized by John the Baptist, this is a perfect image of what a father should be, right? It's 3 things. When a voice came from heaven when Jesus was being baptized, and he said, "This is my son, who I love, who I'm well pleased with," and that I acknowledge. And I think a lot of times we don't understand that whenever we do have children, is that we need to acknowledge, we need to be proud of, and we need to love our children. And I love that video, man, wherever you were talking and you're just telling Weston every time you're dropping him off, "I love you, son. I'm proud of you. I love you." And your son turns around and is like, "I love you too, Dad. I'm proud of you too, Dad." But I was thinking, I was like, your son saw all of this. And little do we know.
Saw everything.
He saw all of it. And he was trying to muster up the words and put the dots together. But I think as he matures, he's going to have your story to tell. And whenever he meets,
and think about it like that.
You know what I mean? He's like, "I'm proud of my dad." At a young age, he's going to remember that first glimpse of thought that my dad, I learned how to fight because of my dad.
Yeah, it's, with when she was going through her cancer journey, him and Haley were very close because I was focused on her. And as she got more sick, I was even more focused on her, and I was trying to juggle taking care of him and her. And it wasn't until, we were always close. It wasn't like we weren't close, but he always gravitated towards his mom, which is pretty typical with boys. But after she passed, we really leaned on each other. And I remember that first night where that bed was empty, which is what I had dreaded for 8 years, what that was going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because she pushed me to have a child, I had someone in that bed to help me.
Mm-hmm.
He was laying in that bed, and I was crying. I was sobbing. And he said, "Do you miss mommy?" And I said, "Yeah." He was like, "Don't worry, we got each other's backs." He was 4 years old. He said that to me, 4 years old.
Oh my gosh.
I'm looking, I'm like, who are you?
That would shatter.
And, you know, I had a parent-teacher conference with his teacher the other day. And she said, "I've been doing this a long time, and your child is very unique." And I was like, "What do you mean?"
Special.
She said, "I have never seen such compassion in such a young child." And I can only think it's because he watched his parents that truly loved each other and watched his father take care of her.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
but our mission from the day he was born, that we were going to suffocate that boy with love. It was going to be too much love.
Yeah.
And I never waste an opportunity to tell him I'm proud of him.
Yeah,
and
That's awesome.
that I'm blessed that I'm his dad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's enough godly, manly men that tell their sons, "I love you and I'm proud of you."
That's right.
It's huge.
That's right.
You know, speak life into that boy.
That's right.
He's going to be a man one day. Speak life into him.
Right.
Be a role model.
That's right.
So I just see it as an opportunity to, you know, share to the world, you know, and I know social media, you got to take it with a grain of salt, you know.
It's a world inside of a world.
You know, and I know people will watch that video where I'm telling them I'm proud of them. They're like, "Oh, he just does it for the camera." No, I'm dead serious. I do it every day. Gets dropped off for school. I do it every night before bed. You know, like, I'm telling you, I'm as authentic and real as it comes. So I feel like there's not enough authenticity on social media, and that's my goal.
Love that.
Is to be straight up and honest with people.
Yeah.
I think you gain people's respect that way.
Well, I've enjoyed this, man. I really enjoyed it. And I guess before we wrap up here, you know, your message to, like, maybe the husband that just got bad news, or the father, or anybody who could be in a situation that you're in, what would be your one rooted message that you kind of live by now, having experienced it and where you're at now in your life?
I would say my message is 2 words: man up. It's time to be a man, and you don't have time to be concerned about how you feel about it. You've got a wife and children to take care of, and they come first, and you have to put them first. And your role as a man is to be that leader in that household and set that example, and everyone feeds off of you. And when you're showing strength, and I think that's why I became so numb, was because I felt I had to be strong all the time, because I didn't want Haley to be upset because I was upset. And so I just say, you know, be that leader, be that role model, you know, lean into your faith, you know, and like I said earlier, you know, don't stop when you're tired. Stop when the job is done.
I love that. It's David Coggins.
Yeah.
I love
Good, man.
That's really good stuff.
So
That's good.
Thank you, Taylor. I appreciate it, bro. Thank you for being here. It's an honor for you to have, you know, be with us on your first podcast experience. I know it's one of many.
I feel blessed.
But man, I appreciate you, brother.
Guys, if you like this episode of the Get Back Podcast, like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and go to justmeats.com, code GETBACK for $25 off your first order. See you soon.